Good evening and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas. Tonight, we're going to introduce you to two entrepreneurs that are living their dreams. And wait till you hear about what they're doing. And hopefully, by the end of the show, you are motivated and inspired to live out whatever dream that you have in your head if you haven't already begun those steps towards that destination. My first guest is Mr. Mario Miner, and he is the owner of Market Fresh Gourmet grocery stores. That's his logo. Let's bring him on. How you doing?
I am well, Miss Taylor Thomas. How are you?
Please call me Taylor. I am looking forward to this. We've been communicating now for a couple of weeks, and I was so excited to think about, it is Black History Month. For me, Black History Month is every month. I like to highlight African American business owners and entrepreneurs and African Americans that are doing things that still in 2022, you're surprised to say, wow, they're still doing it. They're the first in this community or the first in this state. So you are the owner of Market Fresh Gourmet grocery stores. Listen, how do you even start the process of becoming a grocery store owner?
Well, I have to tell you, first of all, thank you for having me on. Representing Market Fresh Gourmet. I sit here before you to represent a whole team of people. Folks see me out in the open and in the public, kind of doing the business development and community engagement and those things. But to be honest, there are a whole host of people that are behind the Market Fresh Gourmet brand itself. How we started? Well, first of all, Market Fresh Gourmet is a minority-owned full-service grocer. And one of the things that we do is we specialize in going into areas where there is a underserved, or underprivileged, or where there's a great need in the community, in places where you don't traditionally see grocers go into.
Okay.
And so that's just kind of who we intentionally evolved to become. Getting into this, it was a process. I started off actually in the entertainment industry, and had a friend of mine, Mr. Knight, who was Mr. Knight, Miss Joanne Jenkins, and Mr. Arden Smith. They were actually um, working in a grocery store at the National Harbor. I know you're familiar with that. And so there
Yes.
was a store at the National Harbor that was under previous ownership. It went under, and I happened to be at that time, kind of doing promoting concerts down at the National Harbor, in the summertime. And so when the store went under, one of my great friends I just mentioned happened to be a manager in the wine and beer section. Right place at the right time. Had no idea that this was going to come to fruition. Got an opportunity to become an owner in this location, and I did. I became an owner after several times of trying to pass it off and give it away to someone else. And then I just had the opportunity to really take advantage of the situation in which I did. And, there are a whole host of things that kind of led to this.
So you
Um,
just said
yeah.
that you and your partners decided to get together and to open up this grocery store at a location that failed. Is that the true essence of an entrepreneur? You see opportunity where others may see failure?
Well, it is, but part of it was just the journey. Part of it was actually, just the calling that was placed upon my life at that time. There were multiple aspects of how I got to this point. And it really is a movement, a spiritual movement that really is the crux of the whole thing. I've gone through several health challenges. I'm a cancer survivor, leukemia, two-time heart attack survivor. And in the midst of all these things, I happen to just really reach out to God and say, okay, all these things that happened in my life. I had some other personal challenges going on at the time. And it came a day and I said, Lord, I'm in a lot of pain emotionally. These things keep happening. What is it that you're trying to tell me? What is it that you're trying to get me to do? And he said, feed my people. and I did not know what that meant. But a few months after that, I got the opportunity to become an owner in this first grocery store, and the rest is pretty much history.
So the process in and of itself, was it 1 year, 5 years? And I ask you that question because for others out there who haven't taken the leap of faith, to
Mhm.
know that some things don't happen overnight, and some things do take years and consistency.
Yeah, and you're absolutely correct with that. This process, this journey with me specifically started in 2014.
Okay.
And so, we have been going through every aspect of it. You have to understand your craft. You have to understand your calling and your purpose. And then once you do that, you have to understand that when you get into that and you start that purpose and you get the opportunity, what I did was I learned it. When I became an owner in it, I knew about grocery stores by being a consumer. I knew about business because I'd had food businesses before, pizza shops and things like that,
Okay.
and operated those. And so what I had to do at that point was really understand what was going on behind the scenes. So I learned logistics. I learned brand to become a brand ambassador. I learned the numbers, the profits and learning statements. I learned the marketing and promotion and all those. So I had to learn all those things. We traveled the country looking for products and understanding producers and beer and wine and chips and breads and everything that's in the grocery store. We literally learn that business inside out. And so it took some time to do that. Then there are other aspects of it, where we had a desire growing up in Sea Pleasant, Maryland. It's a food desert. And so I had to understand really what a food desert was. Had no
Mhm.
idea. I lived in a food desert my entire life. I
Wow.
learned about it when I became an adult. And so it was to understand what was going on in our community, which is a food desert, health enterprise zone, and opportunity zones. More of the focus at that time was more so on the food deserts, which was classified as um, communities not having access to fresh, affordable produce and grocery needs, food needs within a certain mile radius, depending on where you live in the country. And then the other part of that was to understand the health enterprise aspect of it, or the healthy or the social impact aspect of it, which was people in underserved communities or black and brown communities, in some cases Caucasian as well, but mostly black and brown communities were suffering so bad, having so many health crises and issues that those locations, those communities were given a certain identification of it being in despair, a great need to have intervention with respect to the industry that I'm in. And so we begin to learn that, have conversations with developers and our legislators. It's a whole process, understanding how it got that way, understanding that we're now in a pandemic. But to be honest with you, I lived in a pandemic my entire life.
Mhm.
My community was in a pandemic. I lived in a food desert my entire life. So most of the communities that look like me, where people look like me in those communities, we've been in a pandemic for a long, long time. And so it was really understanding that aspect of it as well. This is not for the weak. Being an entrepreneur is not for the weak. You have to really understand your purpose, understand that business, and really go all in and never be deterred, never give up. And people will weed themselves out. Understand that God will put the right people in your life at the right time so that you can do his will for the good of his kingdom.
So, Mario, now that you've gone through and now you reflect back and look and say, oh, wow, I didn't realize I was actually grew up in a food desert, understanding the definition, spending the years that you have doing the research and opening up your Market Fresh Gourmet grocery stores. Why do you think there is such a disparity within communities of color?
I think that's a multifaceted question.
Okay.
Some of it is education. Some of it is fear for the stigmatism of going into a community look like us. That you can't be profitable from some aspects, and some aspects that it's going to be ridden with I would say crime, theft, all those kinds of things. So that it's a multitude of things why that is the case that we've learned as we have come along this journey.
So Mario, I'm going to have my producer pull up some pictures, and then I want you to tell us what location we're looking at and the kind of story behind Market Fresh Gourmet grocery stores.
Okay. This is our Baltimore location. We have one or two locations that is coming up in Baltimore. This is actually slated to be our first location that's going to open up this year.
Okay,
This is an 8,000 square foot location.
that's huge.
This is going to be the smaller part of it actually. But the need here is so great that we decided with the developer that we did not want to wait until the larger location was available to come in and do the work that we needed to do.
Wow.
So we wanted again to try to be the change agent and get in that community as soon as we could. We agreed to do a smaller location to do the work that we need to do. And we will transition from that smaller location and transition to a larger 20,000 square foot location that is on the same street, maybe a block and a half up the street. So that we'll continue to be in that community to do the good work. This is our Hampton Park location. It is scheduled to be open end of this year, probably first quarter of next year. And this is our Prince George's County location.
That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, all of our locations will be beautiful. We have, let me go back to that location. That one's particularly special to me because it is the first call that we got to be an intervention into food deserts.
Okay.
That is the first, and it's in a zip code where I grew up at. So it is very, very special and near and dear to my heart because that's where it all started for me. I have the opportunity to go back home and, well, I'm not just a couple miles from there. I have the opportunity to really service the community of people that served me and helped me to grow to become the man and the God-fearing person that I am today. So that is special. And then Baltimore location, these are opportunities for us to go in and replicate what we're going to be doing and the things that I've been able to do as I grew up in Sea Pleasant.
Okay, so that picture of the vegetables looked so perfect. Everything is vibrant, the colors. I'm a foodie and I love going to the this section where I can see the fresh produce. I don't know what, I just geek out on that.
Yeah, that picture right there, it's an example of the work that we do. In fact, that is Mr. Lenny Knight. That is his pet peeve, that when you walk into our locations, the first thing you're going to see is you're going to be overwhelmed with beautiful colors that's coming from the earth. That is, we believe that you are what you eat. And that's where it starts right there. That's the beginning of your journey when you come into our location. So that picture actually those are actually pictures that we actually do. So we like to take pictures of our work so that people can understand the caliber and the quality that you will receive at all of our locations.
So Mario, you've mentioned several times about, obviously we're still in the pandemic. There are some grumblings that there may be a nationwide lifting of the mask mandates. But I ask you, there are shipping issues. There's the cost of living. How reasonable or affordable will it be when people walk into your store?
So, and that's a good question. We of course will be as affordable as we can. We also, and just some of the things that we're doing to get the stores up and going and having conversations with some of the food purveyors and distributors, their costs are going up as well. One of the unique things about us is the relationships that we've garnered over the past several years with actual producers is what we call them. These are people who actually make the products. So we, in a lot of cases, have the opportunity to go directly to them and make our deals with them without any people in the middle of that. And so it's a lot of that is about the relationships. It's about knowing what departments and what items in your store to put on sale while other costs continue to skyrocket or continue to have a certain escalation in price. It's understanding where to go in and where you need to raise prices and be conservative in other areas. Also, profit to us looks like a totally different thing than profit to other people. We own Market Fresh Gourmet. And when you look at other establishments, they have to deal with shareholders and Wall Street and things of that nature. So we have the ability to be as agile as we need to be. So our agility leads to affordability with respect to what we do within our store. So we have a lot of different ways that we will be able to be affordable is the best way to put it. So that's not something that we're not afraid of that at all. But that is a reality. Yeah, cost in the supply chain, it is a reality.
So, Mario, is there any correlation with the fact of you talking about some health things that you were going through, of you seeing the importance of, why you decided to open up Market Fresh Gourmet grocery stores?
Yeah. And let me just circle back on the last point. I want to make sure that the important part of also that food chain supply or the supply chain is the connection with the community businesses, your local farmers, your local producers who are making great things, phenomenal products right here in our region, right next door to us. And so it's the relationships that we garner with them as well to be able to give them opportunity to be a brand ambassador for them, to put their products on the store in a situation where they otherwise would not been able to, in like some of the big box stores. And so we enjoy those relationships as well. So my health situations became a part of my ministry. Again, went through in 2005, I had a heart attack. And I walked around all day with it before anyone understood. Before I went to the hospital and they told me what it was. 2011, I had a relapse. My mom fell ill several years after that, and she passed away of a health matter. And then just some of the food, we do a lot of food distributions. And before we got into that was just like the nail or the screw in the coffin for me. I understood when God said, feed my people, I didn't know what it meant at the time, but as I got into it and I learned about food deserts and I started seeing the people in there, and I related to myself being in that situation. And I saw the havoc that it was causing in my body. And I began to understand, wow, I'm a product of my community. My parents did the best that they could to feed us, but we were very, very, I wouldn't say poor, but we we grew up in a situation where we were very humbled. We had an abundance of love, but we had not an abundance of food. And being the youngest child, sometimes I got to the table and the food was gone. But I understood at that time that I had grown up in a community that because of the things that I ate, I became a victim of that. And you are what you eat. So my exterior looked fine, but my interior, my pipes were all clogged up. And so it's a lot of different aspects from a health aspect that caused me to really focus on and say, you know what, we need to be a change agent. And in doing that, this is what we're going to do. This is my calling. And God, if you put the people around me to do that, I will do your will. And that's really what it is.
Wow, I see Uniqua said, this is wonderful. Continue the work. We are what we eat. Thank you, Uniqua. Oh,
Thank
and CC, represent Mr. Mo. Okay, Mojo. I don't know who that is. So that must be someone who knows you personally.
Yeah, that was my cousin, and my nickname is Mo, and she calls me Mojo. My granddad, my mom called me Mojo.
So how are people receiving the fact that one of their own are coming back in their community and in other communities of color to bring a grocery store that will feed them mentally and physically as well?
We have been received with overwhelming success, overwhelming happiness, because these communities have been neglected for quite some time, and where there is a presence in those communities, there, you have stores that are pretty run down, third and fourth generations of produce, everything salt, fat, and sugar in a box and frozen in a freezer, those things have been there for years and no one else has come to rescue. And so to see someone, a son of their own, specifically for Sea Pleasant, but someone of their own ilk, their own culture, their own hue, skin hue, to come in a community and say, you know what, we're going to invest, because it costs a lot of money to do this. It costs a lot of money, but we're going to invest in this community and communities such as this and as many places as we can, because one, we deserve it. You deserve it. And this right now is the calling upon our lives. It's a team, as I said, that's doing this. And we've been called to do this job.
Mario, there are so many grocery store chains in the country. I mean, it's overwhelming. In some of these smaller communities, there's literally 4 or 5 within walking distance. And so, did you receive any pushback from these giant companies that have the space and name recognition that you don't have at this point?
We have not received any pushback. Again, we're in a space. I think we found a niche, if you will.
Okay.
We're in a space that a lot of people are not in. We're in a space that a lot of people have not looked to come to. We understand this space. We understand this community. We lived in it. We're born. We live in it. Lived in it. Have family in it. It's who we are. So this is very near and dear to our lives, to our hearts. And so, no, we have not had any pushback. I think it's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'd say I think it's I think what we're doing has been received by the multitude of people and the multitude of people who do what we do as well.
Mario, walk us through visually, mentally, actually, what we'll see when we walk through one of your Market Fresh Gourmet grocery stores.
Okay. So the first thing you'll see when you walk in is, as I said, an array of colors, and a warm smile and customer service as you go through the entire store. We're very big on that. We're very big on what you're going to see and what you're going to feel when you get in there. So you'll see a full service grocery. You'll see your produce. You see your exotic cheese section. You'll see your health and beauty section.
Okay.
You'll see your seafood section. You'll see your poultry section. You'll see your deli, your butcher.
You're gonna have a butcher.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
You'll see your meat section. You will see hot and cold prepared foods. You'll see the food bars. You will see customer service. You will see a cafe. You will also see a community room. That's part of the connection that we'll have with all the communities that we go to. We're trying to make sure that we have a space where we can invite the community in outside of them coming in to shop, but have a space where we can invite them in so we can interact with them and we can do the things that we're planning to do. Some of the educational events. I always say that we are an EEO company, and most people think that's an equal employment opportunity. We are that, but it also stands for us. It also stands for exposure, education, and opportunity, which is missing in a lot of our communities, and that's part of why we are where we are.
So important. So is there a thought of franchising outside of the Maryland area?
Can't answer that at this point. What I can say is that there is interest for us to go outside of the Maryland area, but we are also receiving requests from other areas to go outside of the Maryland area. So as we explore those opportunities within our expansion, we'll deal with that and cross those bridges and make those decisions as we continue to grow. Don't want to grow too fast. We want to make sure that
So Mario, tell us the openings. So it's Baltimore first, and then there's one in Prince George's.
Yes, Baltimore is scheduled to be our first opening, and that is slated to be sometime around late summer, maybe early fall. Our Prince George's County location is scheduled to be open in the fourth quarter, maybe first quarter of next year. And I use those terms because we're still in the pandemic, and COVID has impacted quite a bit of things. And so, we have to really kind of use those terms loosely, but those are the time frames that we're working with right now. So yes. Yeah.
I see we've got a comment from CC Love. I'm looking forward to coming back to the community to give back, support, and feed my soul and belly with healthy foods and definitely hope this is healthy juice. Oh, so I guess we maybe will have healthy juices there as well.
We absolutely will have a juicing section as well. Yes, ma'am.
I just know that it's really exciting to know something like this. And I know that in the past, oh, there's Toy saying seat
Hey,
pleasant. Oh,
Toy.
too. Oh, wow. Okay. So, in the past, I've heard over the last couple of years, Black farmers have really been left out. Is there any thought of reaching out to those farms that are still in operation of getting their produce? Not that you would exclude anyone, but, making sure that they had a place to call home too.
Yeah, we are actually doing that as we speak. We have, yeah, we've been, as we are leading to opening up our locations, we have do a lot of community outreach. As I said, we do a lot of food distributions, where we feed hundreds and hundreds of people. Um, and we're also meeting with what we call producers, people who actually produce stuff, make stuff, and part of that is farmers. So we are meeting with people as we speak to make sure that we are sampling products, we're understanding the expectations on both sides, and creating the opportunities and the deals that we're able to create prior to us actually opening up the venues. And so we are absolutely having those conversations. It's important for us to make sure that we include diversity within what we do, and so that includes Black grocers. I mean, Black farmers.
And Mario, I heard you say partnership, and it seems like there may be a relationship that you have either statewide or government. Is there anything that has helped you get to where you are now as it pertains to opening up
Oh,
Market Fresh Gourmet groceries?
yeah, yeah, and so very important. Entrepreneurs. It's very, very important that you create coalitions, the right coalitions. Not everyone is the best one. Not all money is good money, and they eventually weed themselves out. So, and to answer to your question, yes, we have support from various levels that have allowed us to be sustainable to this point, and that will be moving beyond with us as we continue to grow. And I hope that you'll have me back on again as we open, and I can talk more about
Absolutely.
some of these areas.
They have to come on
Yeah,
location.
yeah, absolutely. Would love to do that. And so at that time, we will be announcing our strategic equity partners and all those and things like that. And so I can't wait till we get to that point. I can't wait till we get there. But to answer your question, yeah, there are a multitude of partnerships that we've garnered along the way that have allowed us to get to this point, and they are still there with us, and they have now signed on to go the long haul with us. So we're absolutely awesome. We're great about this. Look at Market Fresh Gourmet.
They're commenting. There was a comment from a person saying, "CC, wanting to know if you were going to have a nutritionist. Is that something in the works or thought of?"
Yes, so that is also a part of our community engagement piece in our community room. So that's a part of the partnerships I just finished speaking about. We will have representation of that as well. The health insurance carriers, nutritionists, you name it. We have been doing foundational work for well over 2.5, 3 years, over 3 years, and it includes all that, putting those things in place and getting those relationships and partnerships in place so that we can mobilize ASAP.
I love hearing that. Mario Miner, owner of Market Fresh Gourmet Grocery Stores, Baltimore, the first location. Then there's going to be one in Prince George's County. If people want to follow you and see where you are and see if they want to bring you to their city or their town, where should they go?
I say they can find us on social media, whether it is Instagram or Facebook. But you can also reach out to us and send us a message on at www.marketfreshgourmet.com. I'm starting to know that by heart.
It's okay.
www.marketfreshgourmet.com. You can sign up there, like all of our social media pages. We're there. We're here. We're not going anywhere. We're excited about what we're doing, and we're grateful.
Mario, I have to thank you so very much for joining us as a part one of our part two of
Yes.
entrepreneurs living out their dream. We want to thank you for joining us tonight, and we're going to keep in touch with you and see when you open your first store.
Thank you so very much, Taylor. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to come on your show and speak to you. Thank you, your listeners as well. Again, thank you for your support.
Absolutely. So that's guest number one, Mario Minor. Okay, we're going to continue. Our next guest is truly living out a dream that probably many of us may have had, but never thought about really taking the steps. She is a self proclaimed wine geek. You heard me right, wine geek. And she is the 2021 Murphy Good Dream Job Contestant winner. I'd like to introduce you now to Lindsay Perry.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi, Taylor. How
Lindsay.
are you?
Wonderful. Lindsay, is
I'm
that
so
a wine
excited.
glass in your hand?
It is a wine glass in my hand. Of course, I had to drink some Murphy Good for this interview. Got to
I
represent.
love it. I love it. So Lindsay, I'm going to start off by telling you I'm not a wine drinker. I don't drink anything. But I think, I started, after I reached out and I heard about you winning the 2021 Murphy Good Dream Job in Napa Valley. How crazy is that? I started looking at television differently, and it is in every show, every commercial, and it's just like a sexy thing or a really avant-garde thing to do. You're, another level. What is your interest in it outside of enjoying the libation?
I would have to say, first of all, it's one of those things that you're totally right. You don't really notice that it's in every show or movie, and especially when you're looking and seeing labels that you recognize, but it's not something that you outwardly look out for. So it's funny that you say that. But yeah, I um, originally found love in drinking wine, and then after I started going to wine tastings and really realizing like this is kind of wine is kind of art and science in one. It made me kind of realize that I wanted to learn more about it, and it's so interesting to hear different winemakers and the stories of different wineries and the stories of different wine regions, and there's just so much knowledge and research that to do that's really what drew me to further pursuing a hobby in the wine industry, or just a hobby in wine in general, and then obviously it turned into a job.
Now, Lindsay, if I'm correct, you're from Austin, Texas. Is that wine country?
So I'm originally from Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up. And then I was living in Austin, Texas for 5 years.
Okay.
But there is a kind of, I call it kind of like the Napa Valley of Texas. It's called
Okay.
Fredericksburg. And so it's
Okay.
out in the Texas Hill Country. And they grow a lot of wines that are similar to what you would taste in Spain, because it's kind of the same climate. So it's definitely
Okay.
different than Napa Valley, different than Sonoma. But there is a wine country in Texas, and being out there, that definitely helped my journey, because I got to go out there and kind of taste wine and learn more about it.
So, how did you learn about this Murphy Good Dream Job competition?
Yeah, so I didn't learn about it until it started going viral. So they posted this job, and all of a sudden, all of these outlets were picking it up. There was like CNN, Travel Noir. There were just a bunch of articles everywhere, and then the Jimmy Fallon show talked about it, which really made it blow up after that. And then some of my friends saw it, and then they sent me the article about it. And at first glance, you're like, well, this is too good to be true. Like, a year of free rent, a year of free wine, and you're getting a job in the wine industry. It just seemed way too good to be true. And then when I went and kind of started, researching the company and researching Murphy Good, I realized that they had done this competition about 11 years ago, where they
Oh,
hired one person. So they've done this before, but they hired him. His name is Hardy Wallace. And so 11 years later, they brought it back. And I was like, oh, okay, so they've done it before, which means it can't be fake. So that's when I kind of realized I mustered up the courage to decide to apply.
so we're going to show the actual announcement so people can see these announcements.
Yeah.
So, okay, one, land your dream job. Two, rent free. I think a lot of people will run to that. And then, oh my goodness, living in Sonoma wine country, a really
Yeah.
good job. I like to play on words. And then a really good job. That's really good. Murphy Good. If excited when called a wine geek, we want to hire you. I love it. I love it. A really good job. So now
Yeah.
I want to show everyone your incredible video because I didn't, shame on me, I didn't get the number of people that applied, but I can
Oh,
imagine it was hundreds of thousands of people, maybe even a million.
it
Because
was over
most people like wine.
7,000, over 7,000 applicants.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
going to play your video that grabbed the attention of the people looking for their next person to really be a representative for Murphy Good.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Perry, and for my video application, I'm going to tell all of you at Murphy Good why I would make an amazing employee. As a digital marketing specialist, I'm skilled at developing campaigns that drive customer engagement, acquisition, and anything else my company's striving towards. Thanks. Another part of my role is creating die-hard, passionate fans of my brand, and I want to bring that to Murphy Good. Not to mention, I have an array of skills that'll help me succeed. I've completed WSET levels 1 and 2 with the Napa Valley Wine Academy, so I'm able to recall hundreds of wine facts at the drop of a hat.
Hey Lindsay, can you tell me what tannins are?
Why yes, Emily, I can. Tannins are natural polyphenols that are found in the skins of black grapes. It's what gives your mouth a drying effect when you're drinking something like a Murphy Good Cabernet Sauvignon. I feel comfortable using wine jargon in everyday life. The aromas on this flower are amazing. And that's why you should vote for me, Lindsay Perry, future employee at the Murphy Good Winery for the class of 2021. Cheers!
I absolutely love it. Now I have to ask you, Lindsay, what was your background before getting this great job?
So my background, I studied communication studies at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. And then on the side, I was a cheerleading instructor. And so those kind of two passions ended up aligning when I got a digital marketing job at a sports marketing company in Austin, Texas. And so part of my job was to promote live cheerleading events all across the country. And so I did that for about 5 years, and that kind of let me hone my digital marketing skills, but it also allowed me to be really creative. And so that's kind of where I was like, oh, well, I can totally take my digital marketing, and I already do it with one passion, which is cheerleading. I can just do it with my next passion, which is wine. So that's kind of the backstory.
That really was excellent, and it's actually a play on. I know what movie. I'm trying to think of it. Oh my goodness,
Legally Blonde.
Legally Blonde. That one of my
Yes.
favorites. Ridiculous for me to say that, but anyway, it is. It's a classic. And when I first saw that, I'm like, is she doing that? I was like, oh, it was really catchy. And if you've ever seen it and liked, that genre of movies, you really got it instantly. I mean, you were so
Thank
really
you.
really comfortable with what you were doing. So did you have someone, a professional photographer or videographer come and do that? I mean, it looked really great.
Thank you. Yeah, so I mean, looking back at the video, it's so funny to watch. I was laughing watching it because I just remember that day. It was one of my best friends, the one who swam by.
Yeah.
We watched the movie. We watch Legally Blind all the time. So when I told her that I wanted to do a play on it, she was like, all right, turn on the movie. We're writing the script right now. We
Wow.
figured out the shot list. And then I had one of my coworkers who, we were kind of burnt out and tired from the entire cheerleading event season. And I was like, hey, do you want to work on like this really fun project with me? And he was like, yeah, sure. So he actually, got in the pool when I was doing the swim up part. And we had a lot of fun that day. But yeah, I did have help making the video, but it was great.
And I loved how, even though you were in the pool, you made it about the wine and not showing the full bottle. I just thought that was really a classy way of getting the message out without making it about anything more than that. So please,
that was the goal. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I pay attention to.
I'm glad you recognized it.
And clearly they did too. So tell us what happens next. You send in this incredible video. What happens?
So I sent in the video. I actually I was a little bit late to sending it because the campaign opened last March. I didn't submit my video until about the end of, a week before the close, which was June 30th. So I was just kind of like, all right, here goes, submitted my video. And then about a week after the campaign closed, I got a call that said, hey, your video was great. We loved it. You were one of our 17 finalists. Are you available to fly out to Sonoma County and, come and spend a couple days with us and spend a week with us and it was finalist week. So I just, out of that, I just became a finalist in 2 weeks. It was actually pretty surreal.
And where were you in life? Were you working? Were you still in college?
I was actually going into my 5th year working with Flow Sports, which is the live streaming company that I worked for. So I was very comfortable in my job. I remember when I put in my 2 weeks, when I told them I had gotten this job, I was like, I promise you, I wasn't planning on leaving. I just felt like I should take this chance and take a leap and just submit a video. I mean, I submitted it and thinking, yeah, there's probably thousands of people that are applying. I had no idea that my video would have made such an impact, but it did. So I was, working for the company, and I was very comfortable there. And then I got this amazing opportunity, so I took it and ran with it.
Now, in reading about you before I reached out to Murphy Good, you have a real passion for educating African Americans as it pertains to enjoying wine and understanding it. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, part of the reason that I started my blog and kind of started an Instagram page just about wine, separate from my personal accounts, is because it felt like there's not enough of us in the wine industry. And I know that that is something that has been a struggle for Black people and people of color for a long time, especially in an industry that is so white. And so, there are a lot of people and a lot of change makers that are in the industry that are kind of changing the perception of what Blackness in the wine industry looks like. And I decided that I just wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be a part of that change. There's in my cheerleading days, I kind of had the same thing where I was, too many times the only Black person on the cheerleading squad, the only Black instructor at a cheerleading camp, the only Black face as like the talent at a competition. And so just being that person, a lot of times we used to say, you can't be what you can't see. And
Mm.
so I wanted to kind of take that notion into the wine industry and be someone that people can look at and say, oh, look, there's another person that looks just like me and loves wine, and she's working in the industry. I have that same kind of passion. I want to do that too. And so just kind of creating that vision for other people coming up is something that I really, really wanted to approach and continue. And then the other side of that is, education in general. I feel like, especially the way that wine is marketed sometimes towards Black people and people of color, is it's just very different. And so a lot of people kind of get into a box of they only like one type of wine, or they only like, sweet wine or white wine. And so taking the stigma out of learning about why a wine tastes dry and why maybe you do like sweet wine. And oh, well, if you like this type of wine, there's a bunch of other ones that you could try that are not necessarily sweet, but they don't taste dry. Just I'm going on a little bit of a geek
Oh,
ramble
you're
right
correct.
now.
I mean,
But
perfect.
but things like that, where it's just, if you just kind of provide the context of why certain things taste the way they do, or why certain things are just the way they are in wine in general, in any facet, just providing education and providing the visibility into a world that you know nothing about. I think it's just really, really important. And so I felt like me getting into it, and I'm learning about it. And I'm still very, such a newcomer. I also want to teach people about it while I'm still learning about it. It's just very exciting.
Do you do wine tasting events? If so, will you have one in the Maryland or DC or Virginia area?
That's a great question. I don't do wine tasting events, but there are a lot of great people in the wine industry that are in the DMV area. I would like to call out one of my friends. Her name is Isis Daniel. You can follow her on Instagram. It's the Millennial Psalm, and she's doing incredible things out in the area.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So, it's got to be something big that Murphy Good would go. I mean, I'm assuming that out of the 7,000 people, I'm quite sure African Americans were a minority in the population. To go and select you, who are unapologetic and African American, and you let it be known. What is that like? Oh, and you're going to have to tell what this picture is after you answer that question.
So, I think that part of it, part of me and my mission and my goal was something that really impressed them. The fact that I do want to bring diversity into the wine industry. But also at the same time, Murphy Good decided to bring this campaign back because of the fact that they wanted to bring people into the wine industry that, it's pretty hard to get into the wine industry if you're not, if you don't have the right connections or you don't live in the right area. And so I think that what they tried to do is they tried to say, you know what, we want to hire 2 people that are just like outsiders in wine. All you have to do, like that picture, if you get excited when someone calls you a wine geek, all you have to do is love wine and send us a video. And, we're going to pick, there are people that watched all 7,000 of those videos and they picked 17 of us. Some of us had, wine experience, wine backgrounds. Others just had a really great passion, really great drive. So it was just, it is a really cool feeling that they decided that I was, one of the people that they wanted to bring in. But yeah, so Murphy Good really is trying to do that and just kind of bring more of an outside voice into an industry that is typically has been kind of gate kept for a while.
So one of the things with the winning the contest with Murphy Good is that you actually had to move to California. So I'm quite sure Pennsylvania is not anything like Sonoma, California. So we're going to look at some pictures, but you didn't just go there to sample the wine. Like you really worked, right?
Yeah. Oh, so anyway, while those are getting pulled up, we were the first thing that we did when we moved there in September was harvest was in full swing. And so harvest is when the grapes are, fully ripened and ready to come off of the vines. And so they are picking the grapes, they're bringing them into the winery, they're crushing them down, turning them into juice, and then making wine out of them. And so that was, for our first days on the job, we were already in the winery, learning about just the winemaking process, literally from the ground up. So, one of the first things we were doing was we were working on the crush pad so that's when the grapes come in on the trucks and get kind of filed into tanks, and then they get crushed into juice, and then the juice goes into another tank. And so it's really like this beautiful ballet of communication and teamwork that the winery has to put on in order for not even just the grapes to get to the right tanks, but for then the right yeast to get added to essentially feed the grapes to create alcohol, to create wine. And then you have the winemakers coming in every single day, tasting almost every single tank, making sure that it tastes right throughout the entire process of from tank to barrel and then on. So we were learning about that. We were learning in the lab, basically measuring the health of the different wine every single day, which was actually, I think, was my favorite part, because we were kind of learning the different measurements and of sugar and pH and acidity and why they are the way they are in different stages. And then, another thing was we were digging out tanks. So Veronica, who is the other winner, and we had to get into these giant tanks with a shovel, and dig out the skins of the grapes after everything had gotten kind of drained out and gone into barrels. So we were learning so much every single day. It almost it made my head spin. And because not only are you in a completely different industry, but you're learning a completely new trade. And it's a very manual labor. But it was so rewarding. I mean, I definitely woke up with muscle soreness in places that I didn't even know had muscles most of the time. But it was so rewarding, and it was so much fun. So yeah, that was the first one.
What was that?
So that video was from the crush pad. So we had to literally rake the grapes out of the trucks so that they could go into what's called an auger and then go into kind of the tanks and get separated from the stems and everything. It was a lot.
I'm gonna have my producer bring those pictures back up, and I want you to tell me where we are. I did have an opportunity. Okay, here we are, the barrels. Okay.
So this is in the winery. So this is actually our first day on the job. We were in the winery with the barrels, which were getting washed. And then on the other side, you see kind of those tanks that I was talking about. So all those tanks kind of get filled with the juice, which then kind of sits in there and ferments and gets turned into wine. And then this picture is on the left is Veronica, and then in the middle is Dave Reddy, who's the Murphy Good winemaker. And so he was going out and tasting some of the tanks that were had just gotten yeast added to them. And so basically what he does is he just makes sure that everything kind of is tasting right and everything's on the right track as far as the wine then turning it, the juice turning into alcohol. So at that time, it kind of tasted like grape juice, like in a weird way. And then eventually over time, it turns into alcohol. So we got to kind of see that process all the way through this year, which was really fun.
So, Lindsay, what are you working on now? I know that you are still a spokesperson for Murphy Good and their amazing, dream job contest for 2021. So, what are you working on now?
So I personally, I'm looking towards getting I have two WSET certifications under my belt. So I'm looking towards getting WSET level 3, which is a lot harder. It involves kind of a little more wine theory, and it also involves a blind tasting as part of the exam. So that's something that I'm working towards getting, or not working on it now, but soon I'm gonna, take the course. And then the other thing is I just published a blog about a couple of Black-owned wines that, for Black History Month. But I think that one of my goals moving forward is just to start highlighting more of those brands because there's so many out there. And so that's something I really want to do. And then another thing would just be kind of exploring Sonoma County, learning about all the different wines that are kind of in this region, going over to Napa Valley, and just kind of taking everything in as much as I can while I'm out here.
So you talked about the WSET. I know you have 1 and 2. Does that allow you to do certain things once you get to level 3, or is there a level 4?
There is a level 4. I just like to take it because like I said, I'm a wine geek. And so just really learning as much as I can, learning the different wine regions across the world. That's really why I take it. It's not, for me, it's just like I personally wanted to do this. It wasn't, to further my career or anything. It was really just a personal commitment that I made to myself to learn as much as I could about wine, and then in turn teach other people.
What is it like living in Sonoma Valley? I mean, everyone has movies about it and you hear people talk about it, but really, since you took the trek there and you're in there cleaning out these big tanks, what's it like?
I have to say, I thought that I would miss Austin, Texas a lot more than I did. I thought I might miss Pennsylvania more than I did, but there's something about Northern California that it's kind of indescribable. The sunsets are beautiful. The weather every day is gorgeous. The people are so friendly. And so it's not just wine. There are so many things that you can do out here. You can go out to the coast. They have beautiful fresh seafood. They have great hiking. And just in general, it's just beautiful. I really do just love it out here.
Would you say, Lindsay, from a non-wine drinking person, the soil really helps to make the wine taste the way it tastes, or the sunshine, or is there any special thing that makes it taste the way it tastes?
Yeah, so there's a term in wine that it's called terroir. And that basically just means that all of the other factors that are not just the grapes that go into a different region also kind of impact the way that the wine is made. So if you look at Sonoma County, It's, foggy and cool climate in the mornings and the evenings. During the day, it's very sunny and hot and bright. And so that kind of aids in the way that the grapes are grown in Sonoma County, along with the soil and, elevation and things like that. But then you go over to somewhere like Napa Valley where it's a lot hotter. And so things like Cabernet Sauvignon grow very differently there. And then you go, down to Australia where there are completely different types of climates and elevation. So there's a lot of different things that go into growing wine that aren't just what kind of grapes you have. And then after that, I'm sorry.
True science.
Yes, it really is science. And then, even with that, there are some times where certain grapes don't even grow, in certain locations as well as others would. So it really is just a balance of knowing where you are and knowing, the region that you're in and the terroir again, to make sure that you're producing the best wine.
So, do you have to, is wine really an acquired taste that you can learn to appreciate and savor? I was told, I guess you pour it in the glass and I see them swirl. I'm always, yes. And so is that for the oxidation? Yeah, exactly. So is that what you really should do? Maybe not every time, but.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do it every time. A lot of people, when you're tasting wine and you're going to a wine tasting, they do that to aerate it. So it just kind of adds a little bit more air to your wine so that you can really get the aromas and the true flavors of the wine after you pour it into your glass. And so that's kind of also why people like to decant really bold wines, because it adds a little bit of oxygen in there to bring out the flavors, to soften the tannin, which kind of is what makes your mouth feel so drying when you're drinking red wine. But I think that I don't think it's an acquired taste. I think that there is definitely a wine out there for everyone. And so I think when people say they don't like wine, I think they just haven't found the right one yet.
Well, I might have to sit and talk to you then. Lindsay Perry, self-proclaimed wine geek. Would you tell us where your blog is or how we can find you?
Yeah, so it's lindsaywinesalot.com is my blog. And then you can also follow me on Instagram with the same name, Lindsay Winesalot. And then you can also follow Murphy Good Winery. We're posting Veronica and I are posting content about our time out here. And then you can also follow Murphy Good Winery on social media.
So now with Murphy Good, are there a number of red and white wines? What's the collection or number that they normally have?
So Murphy Good, I'm drinking the California Red Blend right now, but they have a lot of wines. They have, Zinfandel, Cabernet Sauvignon, they have a Merlot, a red blend, they have a Rosé, they have a Chardonnay, and they also have a Sauvignon Blanc, which is really good. No pun intended, but it is really, really good.
I just want you to know you went over my head with all those things. I've heard them before. I do not know the difference. If you're a beginner, what do you recommend someone start to try?
I would recommend, honestly, just a red blend for the red wine drinkers. And then on the white wine side, I would either recommend a Chardonnay or even a sparkling wine to kind of get your palate in the beginning stages of drinking wine.
I tell you what, Lindsay, you are a joy to talk to. I'm excited to have you on the program. Thank you and Murphy Good for responding to my message so quickly. When I heard about you, I was like, I got to have her on the show. I got to have her on the show. So as we close out, any words that you would like to say to wine lovers, to people who haven't tried the right wine? Any words?
I think that the only thing I would say is just keep trying it, keep exploring. If you haven't found your aha wine yet, then just keep doing it and ask questions. Follow me. I'm always kind of putting out wine recommendations, and feel free to kind of DM me. I always answer anytime people have questions about wine. I love sharing my knowledge and my passion for it. So that's really it. Just keep drinking.
And Lindsay, one more time for how they can follow you.
Lindsay Wines a Lot on Instagram.
Lindsay Wines a Lot. That is a really cute play on words. Yeah,
Thank you.
That's your thing, marketing and communications. Great job. Lindsay Perry, thank you so very much for joining us tonight. Lots of insightful information. And we're hoping that those across the country and even internationally that join us are inspired by you and Mario living your dream and following your passion. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Taylor.
No problem. Until next week, everyone, God bless and goodbye.